Inside the Phoenix, things were not as calm as Captain Jake Morrison's voice suggested. The ship shook and rattled like an old car on a rough road. Loose objects rolled across the floor. Warning alarms beeped from 3 different stations. Lisa Park stared at her engineering console with growing concern. Numbers scrolled past faster than she could read them all. Engine temperature was climbing. Power distribution was uneven. The hull was taking small hits from space debris every few minutes. "Jake," she called out to the captain, "the gravity fields out here are really bad. If we keep going this fast, the ship might come apart." Jake stood behind Danny Cruz, watching the pilot work his magic at the controls. His jaw was set in that determined way that Lisa recognized. It meant he had made a decision and would not change his mind. "Then we need to not keep going this fast," Jake said. "Danny, you got any tricks for this?" Danny's fingers moved across his control panel like he was playing a musical instrument. His eyes never left the screen showing the space ahead of them. A grin spread across his face. "Tricks? Boss, I got a whole bag of tricks, but you're not going to like them. Try me. I'm going to use the gravity fields instead of fighting them. Basically, I'll let them pull us where we need to go. It's going to feel like a roller coaster. A really bad roller coaster." Jake grabbed the back of Danny's chair to steady himself. "Everyone strap in tight. Danny's about to show off." What happened next would have given any standard pilot a heart attack. Danny stopped trying to fly in a straight line. Instead, he aimed the Phoenix at a large asteroid that was spinning slowly. As they got close, the asteroid's gravity grabbed them and pulled them around in a tight curve. Danny used that momentum to sling them toward the next gravity source. The ship tilted hard to the left. Lisa felt her stomach drop as they suddenly accelerated. Then they curved right and she was pressed back into her seat. It was like riding a wave, except the wave was invisible and could kill them if Danny made one mistake. 6 hours to target, Danny announced cheerfully, like he was not currently threading a needle through the most dangerous obstacle course in space. In the back of the ship, Amy Holland was preparing the medical bay for casualties. She had strapped down all her equipment because nothing stayed still during Danny's flying. Bandages, medicine bottles, and surgical tools were all locked in place. She knew they would have injured people to treat when they reached the Wandering Star. The distress call mentioned hull breaches, which meant decompression injuries. Probably broken bones from people getting thrown around, maybe radiation exposure if the ship's shields had failed. Amy had trained for this at Earth's best hospitals. She had worked in emergency rooms during natural disasters. She had patched up injured sailors on ocean rescue missions, but this was different. This was space where a small mistake could kill someone in seconds. "Amy, you good back there?" Jake's voice came through the intercom. "Just peachy," she replied, checking her supply inventory one more time. "How many injured should I expect?" "Information says 47 people total on that ship. Could be anywhere from a few injuries to all of them needing help." Amy took a deep breath. "Then I better be ready for all of them." Kevin Wright sat at the communications and systems station, surrounded by screens showing different types of data. He was monitoring the Wandering Star's status in real time, pulling information from their distress beacon. The news was not good. "Jake, their hull integrity just dropped to 38%, Kevin reported. "They've got breaches on 3 decks now. Life support is barely working. How long do they have?" Kevin ran the numbers through his computer. Best case 5 hours before total life support failure. Worst case 3 hours if they get another breach. "Then we get there in 4, Jake said simply, like it was the easiest thing in the world. Lisa shook her head but smiled despite herself. That was Jake. Give him an impossible deadline and he would just work backward from there. No drama, no speeches about how hard it would be. Just a statement of what needed to happen. The Phoenix suddenly dropped down and to the right as Danny swerved around a cluster of small asteroids. Lisa's coffee cup, despite being in a holder, still managed to spill a few drops. "Danny, I swear if you break my ship," she warned. "Your ship? Last I checked, my name is on the pilot's license. And my name is on the repair bills." Jake laughed. It was a short laugh, but it helped cut the tension. They were flying through a death trap at speeds that should not be possible, racing to save people they had never met. And somehow they were still joking around. That was very human, Jake thought. Make jokes when things get scary. It helped keep fear away. The Phoenix shook harder than before. Danny corrected quickly, but Lisa saw a warning light flash on her console. "We just took damage to the starboard engine," she said. "Nothing critical yet, but it's not happy. Can it hold until we get there?" Lisa studied the readings. Probably. Maybe. Ask me again in an hour. Good enough. Kevin was talking to the Wandering Star over a private channel, trying to keep their crew calm. He spoke in 3 different languages, switching between them as he addressed different crew members. His voice was steady and reassuring. Yes, help is coming. No, not in 3 days. In about 4 hours. I know that sounds impossible, but trust me, we're really good at impossible. Just keep sealing those breaches and maintain whatever life support you can. A voice came back, speaking in broken English mixed with another language. How can you get here so fast? The Corvani said 3 days. Well, Kevin said with a slight smile, we're not Corvani. We're human, and humans don't really believe in the word impossible. Just keep everyone calm and away from the damaged sections. We'll be there before you know it. He muted his microphone and turned to Jake. They're scared but holding together. Got a couple of kids on board who are pretty shaken up. Jake's expression hardened. Kids. That made this personal. Tell them we're coming and we don't leave people behind. Especially kids. The Phoenix shot through a gap between 2 large pieces of wreckage from an old battle. The gap was barely wider than the ship itself. Danny did not even slow down. You know, Amy called from the medical bay. Most people would consider this kind of flying to be criminally insane. Good thing we're not most people, Danny shot back. Lisa was doing calculations in her head. If they maintained this speed, and if the engine held, and if Danny's crazy flying did not get them killed, they would reach the Wandering Star in about 4.5 hours. That gave them maybe 30 minutes of buffer time before life support failed on the damaged ship. It's going to be tight, she said quietly. Jake heard her. It usually is. But tight means possible, and possible means we do it. Another gravity slingshot maneuver threw everyone to the side. The ship groaned and creaked. Metal stressed beyond what the designers probably intended. But it held. The Phoenix was old and looked rough, but Lisa maintained it well. She knew every bolt, every wire, every panel. This ship had carried them through a dozen close calls, and it would carry them through one more. 3.5 hours out, Danny announced. And I think I found a shortcut. Do I want to know what this shortcut involves? Jake asked. Probably not. But it'll cut off 20 minutes. Take it. The shortcut turned out to be a dive through a field of ionized gas that made all their sensors go haywire. For 90 seconds they flew blind, trusting Danny's instincts and the ship's basic navigation. When they emerged, everyone let out a breath they did not know they were holding. 3 hours, 10 minutes, Danny said with satisfaction. Kevin checked the Wandering Star's status again. They just lost life support on one entire deck. Had to evacuate everyone to the remaining sections. It's getting crowded over there. We're coming, Jake said into the communication channel. Wandering Star, this is Phoenix. We're 3 hours out. Hang in there. We've got this. The calm certainty in his voice seemed to travel across space and give hope to the frightened people waiting for rescue. And somewhere behind them, Commander Veltrix watched in amazement as 5 humans in an old cargo ship did what an Empire's entire fleet could not. The warning lights flashed red across every screen in the Galactic Council's command center. Commander Veltrix stood perfectly still, his 4 eyes focused on the holographic display floating in front of him. A ship was in trouble. A big ship with many people inside. The Wandering Star was the name of the vessel. It carried 47 passengers and crew members from 6 different alien species. They were traveling through a dangerous area of space called the Helios Belt when something went very wrong. Their engines stopped working. Their power was failing. Air was leaking out through holes in the ship's walls. Veltrix read the information carefully. The Wandering Star had maybe 60 hours before everyone inside would die. That was not much time. He turned to his officer. How long until we can reach them? He asked. The officer checked his computer. His face showed worry. 72 hours, Commander. Our closest ships are already moving as fast as they can. The Helios Belt has too many problems. Gravity pulls in strange directions there. Rocks and metal pieces fly everywhere. We cannot go faster without killing our own crews. Veltrix felt heavy inside. 72 hours meant they would arrive 12 hours too late. 47 people would die, and there was nothing he could do about it. The Corvani Empire had the best rescue teams in the galaxy, but even they had limits. Sometimes space was just too dangerous. The distress signal kept playing. Veltrix could hear the fear in the captain's voice. Children were crying in the background. Someone was praying in a language the computer could not translate. It made his heart hurt to listen, but he had to. These people deserved to know someone heard them, even if help would come too late. Then something unexpected happened. A new voice came through the speakers. It was different from any alien voice Veltrix had heard before. The tone was calm, almost relaxed. The accent was strange, with sounds that made some words hard to understand at first. "Wandering Star, this is the cargo hauler Phoenix out of Earth. We hear you loud and clear. We're about 12 hours away from your position. Just hold on tight, okay? We've got this." The command center went silent. Everyone stared at the speakers like they could not believe what they just heard. Veltrix quickly pulled up information about this Phoenix ship. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Phoenix was a human ship. Humans were the newest species to start traveling between stars. Most aliens thought their technology was primitive. Their ships looked old and worn. They used methods that seemed dangerous and foolish. The Phoenix was a cargo hauler, which meant it was built to carry boxes and supplies, not to perform rescue missions in deadly areas of space. Veltrix looked at the crew list. 5 names appeared on his screen. Captain Jake Morrison, Engineer Lisa Park, Pilot Danny Cruz, Medical Officer Amy Holland, Systems Specialist Kevin Wright. Just 5 humans. 5 individuals trying to do what an entire Corvani fleet could not do safely. "This is suicide," Veltrix said out loud. "They will die before they even reach the Wandering Star." His tactical officer agreed. "Should we order them to turn back, Commander?" Veltrix thought about it. He should tell these humans to stop. He should explain that their ship was too weak, their crew too small, their chances too small. The Helios Belt had killed experienced pilots in advanced ships. What chance did 5 humans and an old cargo hauler have? But before he could give the order, the Phoenix did something that made every Corvani in the room gasp. The ship turned hard and accelerated straight into the Helios Belt. Not carefully like the Corvani ships. Not slowly with proper safety measures. The Phoenix just aimed itself at the most dangerous region of space in this sector and flew in at full speed. "They are insane," someone whispered. Veltrix pulled up the Phoenix's flight path on the main display. Every officer in the command center stopped their work to watch. The human ship dove between spinning asteroids. It weaved around chunks of broken metal from old shipwrecks. Gravity fields that should have torn it apart seemed to barely affect it. The Corvani had rules for everything. Procedures for every situation, safety protocols that took years to develop and test. These humans seemed to have none of that. They just flew like the rules did not exist. "Track them," Veltrix ordered. "I want constant updates on their position and status." He watched the little dot on his screen that represented the Phoenix. It moved through the Helios Belt like a fish swimming through dangerous waters. Sometimes it disappeared from sensors for a few seconds, hidden behind debris or interference. Each time Veltrix expected it to reappear as wreckage. Each time it came back intact and moving even faster. "Sir, they are reducing their travel time," the tactical officer reported. "At this rate, they will reach the Wandering Star in 9 hours, not 12. "That is impossible," Veltrix said. But even as the words left his mouth, he knew he was wrong. The humans were doing it right in front of him. He opened a communication channel to the Phoenix. He needed to understand what these humans were thinking. He needed to know why they were risking their lives so easily. "Phoenix, this is Commander Veltrix of the Corvani Empire. Your current course is extremely dangerous. We have rescue ships en route. Please reduce speed and exit the Helios Belt immediately." There was a pause. Then that same calm human voice responded. "Appreciate the concern, Commander, but those people don't have time to wait for the safe option. We'll be careful. Phoenix out." And just like that, the conversation ended. The humans did not argue. They did not explain their plan. They just said they would be careful and went back to their impossible rescue mission. Veltrix sat down in his command chair. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders. But what could he order? He could not force the humans to stop. He could not help them through the Helios Belt. All he could do was watch. "Continue tracking them," he said quietly. "And contact the Wandering Star. Tell them help is coming faster than we thought." One of his officers seemed confused. "Should we mention it is a human ship, sir? They might not trust humans to rescue them." Veltrix thought about that. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. Some species thought they were reckless. Others called them primitive. Many questioned why they were allowed to travel space at all with their old ships and strange methods. But as Veltrix watched the Phoenix dart through a field of spinning debris that would have destroyed any Corvani ship, He realized something. Maybe humans were reckless. Maybe their ships were old. Maybe their methods seemed strange, but they were going to reach the wandering star, and they were going to do it in time. "Tell them help is coming," Beltrix said. "That is all they need to know right now." The Phoenix disappeared from sensors again, swallowed by a massive cloud of metallic dust. Feltrix counted the seconds, 10, 20, 30, still nothing. "Come on," he whispered, surprising himself. When had he started rooting for these crazy humans? At 42 seconds, the Phoenix burst out of the dust cloud, still intact, still moving. The signature showed some damage to the outer hull, but the ship was functional. Beltrix allowed himself a small smile. Maybe, just maybe, these humans really did have this. The starboard engine started making a noise that Lisa really did not like. It was a grinding, whining sound that meant something inside was coming apart. She pulled up the diagnostic screen and immediately wished she had not. "Jake, we have a problem." "How bad?" "The engine is overheating. All that stress from Danny's flying finally caught up with us. We need to stop and let it cool down, or we need to repair it right now." Jake looked at the time remaining. 2 hours and 40 minutes until they reached the wandering star. If they stopped now, they would be too late. "Can you fix it while we're moving?" Lisa thought about that. Fixing an engine while the ship was in flight was dangerous under normal conditions. Doing it while flying through the Helios belt at maximum speed was borderline suicidal. But she looked at Jake's face and knew what his answer would be before she even asked. "I'll need to go outside," she said. "Suit up and access the engine from the external maintenance panel." "How long?" 20 minutes if everything goes perfect. Could be longer if I run into problems." Jake did the math in his head. 20 minutes for repairs plus 2 hours and 20 minutes of flying time. Still put them at the wandering star with a small buffer. It could work, do it. "Danny, keep us as steady as you can while Lisa's outside. No fancy moves until she's back in." "You got it, boss." Lisa stood up and headed for the airlock. She had done spacewalks before, but never during a crisis situation, and never while the ship was moving through a debris field. She pulled on her spacesuit, checking each seal carefully. One mistake out there and she would be dead in seconds. Amy helped her with the final checks. "You sure about this?" "Nope, but we don't have much choice." Lisa put on her helmet and gave a thumbs up. "See you in 20 minutes. The airlock cycled open and Lisa stepped out into space. The view was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. The Helios belt stretched out in every direction, full of spinning rocks and ancient debris. In the distance, she could see the faint glow of stars. Directly below her, if down meant anything in space, was the hull of the Phoenix moving at incredible speed. Lisa activated her magnetic boots and carefully walked along the hull toward the engine section. Each step had to be precise. One wrong move and she would fly off into space, left behind as the Phoenix continued without her. "I'm at the engine panel," she reported through her radio. "Opening it now." Inside the ship, everyone listened to her progress. Kevin kept one eye on his screens and one ear on Lisa's updates. Danny flew as smoothly as possible, which was difficult given the obstacles around them. Amy prepared medical supplies in case Lisa got hurt. Jake just watched the clock and trusted his engineer. Lisa pulled open the maintenance panel and immediately saw the problem. A coolant line had cracked under the stress. Fluid was leaking out, which caused the engine to overheat. She pulled out her repair tools and got to work. "Coolant leak," she reported. "I can patch it, but we're going to be running at about 80% efficiency after this." 80% is better than 0%, Jake replied. "Fix it." Lisa's hands moved with practiced skill despite the bulky spacesuit gloves. She sealed the crack with an emergency patch compound, then rerouted some of the coolant flow to bypass the damaged section. It was not pretty, but it would work. Patch applied. Testing now. She activated the engine and watched the temperature gauge. It climbed, then stabilized at a safe level. Not perfect, but good enough to get them to the wandering star. Engines holding steady. Coming back in. As Lisa walked back toward the airlock, a small piece of debris struck the hull near her. The impact was not large, but it sent vibrations through her magnetic boots. For one terrifying second, she felt one boot lose contact with the hull. Whoa. She grabbed a handrail with both hands, heart pounding. "Lisa?" Jake's voice was tense. "You okay?" "Yeah, just a little bump." "I'm good. Almost back to the airlock." She made it inside and the airlock door sealed behind her. As the air cycled back in, Lisa leaned against the wall and took several deep breaths. That had been way too close. "Engines fixed," she announced as she took off her helmet. "Let's go save some people before anything else breaks." Danny increased speed again and the Phoenix shot forward. With the engine repaired, they made good time. 1 hour passed, then 90 minutes. The Wandering Star appeared on their sensors and it looked bad. Kevin pulled up visual images of the damaged ship. The hull was torn open in several places. Entire sections looked crushed or burned. It was amazing anyone was still alive inside. Wandering Star, this is Phoenix, Jake called out. We're 5 minutes away. How are you holding up? The response came back weak and full of static. Phoenix, thank goodness. Life support is at 15%. We have injured. Please hurry. We're coming. Stand by. As they got closer, Lisa studied the damage more carefully. Her engineering mind was already working on the problem of how to get people off that ship. The docking ports are destroyed, she said. We can't dock normally. Jake had already seen that. Then we go in through the hull breach. Danny, can you position us close enough? Danny studied the spinning, damaged ship. It was rotating slowly, which made everything harder. I can get us within about 3 meters. That's as close as I dare without risking a collision. 3 meters? Amy asked. How do people cross 3 meters of open space? Jake pulled up the equipment inventory. We have thruster packs in the cargo bay. Lisa and I will suit up, jump across, and start bringing people back. You and Kevin prepare to receive them. It sounded simple when he said it like that, but everyone knew it was dangerous. One mistake, one miscalculation, and people would die. Let's suit up, Lisa said, already heading for the equipment locker. 10 minutes later, Jake and Lisa floated in space between the two ships. Danny had positioned the Phoenix perfectly, keeping it steady despite the gravitational pulls and debris. The hull breach in the Wandering Star gaped open like a dark wound. Going in, Jake said, and fired his thruster pack. He crossed the gap in seconds, grabbed the edge of the breach, and pulled himself inside. Lisa followed right behind him. They found themselves in a corridor that was partially collapsed and completely depressurized. Emergency lights flickered, giving everything a haunting red glow. Wandering Star crew, this is Jake Morrison from the Phoenix. We're inside. Where are you? A response came through their radios, directing them to a sealed section 3 levels down. Jake and Lisa made their way through the damaged ship, moving carefully through debris and around broken equipment. They found the survivors huddled in what looked like a cargo bay. 47 faces turned toward them. Hope and fear mixed together. There were humans there and several alien species Jake recognized. 3 children clung to their parents. Okay, everyone, Jake said in his calmest voice. We're going to get you out of here. It's going to take several trips, but we will get everyone. I promise. One of the alien crew members, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, stepped forward. How can 2 people evacuate 47? By making a lot of trips, Lisa said simply. Kids first, then injured, then everyone else. We've got emergency suits that will keep you safe during the transfer. They started the evacuation process. Jake and Lisa would help each group suit up, then guide them back through the damaged ship to the breach. There, they would carefully jump across to the Phoenix, where Amy and Kevin would pull them inside. It was slow, careful work. Each trip took about 10 minutes. Kids first, just like Jake promised. The children were scared but brave, trusting these strange humans to save them. Then came the injured, including 2 people with broken bones and 1 with a severe head injury. Amy worked like a machine in the medical bay, treating each person as they arrived. The head injury was serious, but she stabilized him. The broken bones got splints. Everyone got checked for decompression sickness and radiation exposure. Hours passed. The Wandering Star's life support continued to fail. Jake and Lisa kept moving, trip after trip, bringing people to safety. Their muscles ached. Their suits' air supplies ran low and had to be swapped out. But they did not stop. Finally, after the 8th trip, the last person was evacuated. Jake and Lisa took one final look around the dying ship to make absolutely sure they had not missed anyone. Clear, Lisa confirmed. Let's go home, Jake said. They jumped across to the Phoenix one last time. As soon as they were inside, Danny fired the engines and moved them away from the Wandering Star. Minutes later, a final hull breach caused the remaining sections to decompress completely. If they had been any slower, people would have died, but they were not slower. They were exactly fast enough. All 47 survivors were safe aboard the Phoenix, crowded into every available space but alive. Commander Veltrix arrived at the rendezvous point with his fleet 6 hours after the Phoenix completed its rescue. He expected to find wreckage or, at best, a damaged human ship barely holding together. What he found instead made him question everything he thought he knew about rescue operations. The Phoenix was limping toward the nearest station. That much was true. Its hull showed scorch marks and new dents from impacts. One engine was clearly running below optimal capacity, but attached to it, held by emergency tow cables, was the Wandering Star. And inside both ships, all 47 survivors were alive. Veltrix stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the sensor readings in silence. His crew waited for orders, but he had none to give. The humans had done it. They had accomplished what his entire empire considered impossible. "Open a channel to the Phoenix," he finally said. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and what appeared to be engine grease on his cheek. But he was smiling. "Commander Veltrix, good to see you. Sorry we couldn't stick around for your arrival. But we've got some injured people who need proper medical facilities." "Captain Morrison," Veltrix said carefully, "I would like permission to come aboard your vessel. I need to understand what happened here." Jake glanced to the side, probably checking with his crew. "Sure, come on over. Fair warning, though, it's pretty crowded in here right now, and the coffee's gone cold." 20 minutes later, Veltrix found himself walking through the Phoenix's narrow corridors. The ship was indeed crowded. Survivors sat in every available space. Some were sleeping. Others talked quietly among themselves. The 3 children he had heard about were drawing pictures on a datapad, looking much calmer than they probably should be after such an ordeal. An alien with blue skin and 4 arms approached him. Veltrix recognized him from the Wandering Star's crew manifest. "Commander," the alien said, "these humans are incredible. They flew through the Helios belt like it was nothing. They repaired their ship while moving. They came into our dying vessel and carried us out one by one. I have never seen such determination." Veltrix nodded but said nothing. He continued walking until he reached what appeared to be the common area. All 5 members of the Phoenix crew were there, gathered around a small table. They looked like they had been through a war. Lisa Park had grease stains on her face and hands. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. Danny Cruz's hands shook slightly, probably from adrenaline finally wearing off. Amy Holland was finishing what looked like medical reports, her eyes red from exhaustion. Kevin Wright was typing on a datapad, documenting everything that had happened, and Jake Morrison sat in the middle of them all, drinking something from a battered metal cup. "Coffee did get cold," Jake said, holding up his cup. "Want some anyway?" "It's terrible, but it's caffeine." Veltrix sat down at their table, feeling awkward in his formal uniform, surrounded by these exhausted, dirty, but triumphant humans. "I must ask you something, Captain Morrison. You took an unacceptable level of risk. Your ship was not designed for rescue operations. Your crew is too small. You had no support, no backup plan. By all calculations, you should have failed." Lisa laughed at that, a short, tired sound. "Should have failed?" "Commander, failing wasn't an option. Those people needed help. But the risk," Veltrix insisted. "Your ship could have been destroyed. Your entire crew could have died." "Could have," Danny said. "But didn't. That's the important part." Veltrix struggled to find the right words. "How do you train for such scenarios? What protocols did you follow? Where was your command structure approval for such a dangerous mission?" The 5 humans looked at each other. Then Jake set down his coffee cup and leaned forward. "Commander, we didn't wait for approval because those people didn't have time for us to wait. We didn't follow protocols because sometimes protocols are too slow. As for training?" He shrugged. "You can't really train for this. You just see what needs to be done and you figure out how to do it. But the calculations, the risk assessment, the contingency planning." Kevin spoke up for the first time. "We did all that. Took about 90 seconds while we were plotting the course. Then we started adapting as we went." 90 seconds? Veltrix felt his world tilting. My empire would need 90 hours to properly assess such a mission. And in 90 hours, those people would be dead, Amy said quietly. "Sometimes you have to act fast even if it's not perfect." Veltrix looked around the table at these 5 individuals. They were not soldiers. They were not trained rescue specialists. Jake had been a military pilot once, but the others were just civilians who ended up working on a cargo ship. Yet they had done something his entire fleet could not do. "I still do not understand," he admitted. "You keep saying you figured it out and you adapted. But how? How do you know what to do?" Lisa wiped some grease off her hands with a rag. "Commander, do you know what planet we come from?" Earth. I have read about it. Then you know Earth is kind of a nightmare world by galactic standards. Hurricanes that can destroy entire cities, earthquakes that crack the ground open, volcanoes that block out the sun, diseases that kill millions, predators that hunt us, plants that poison us, the ocean trying to drown us, the desert trying to dehydrate us, the cold trying to freeze us. She paused and looked directly at Veltrix. We evolved on a planet that tried really hard to kill us. Every single day for millions of years we had to adapt or die. That doesn't just go away because we're in space now. It's part of who we are. Danny nodded. My grandmother used to say, if you can't find a way, make one. That's basically the human motto. We've got this, Jake said, repeating the phrase that had started this whole situation. When we say that, it's not arrogance, Commander. It's not foolishness. It's confidence built on thousands of years of surviving things we shouldn't have survived. We're really, really good at not dying. Veltrix sat back in his chair. Around him, the survivors of the Wandering Star were safe and recovering. The children were laughing now, playing some kind of game. The injured were being treated by Amy's skilled hands. Everyone was alive because 5 humans refused to accept the word impossible. Your ship is damaged, Veltrix said. Your crew is exhausted. You have 47 extra people on board with limited supplies. Yep, Jake agreed. And yet you seem unconcerned. Because we'll figure it out, Commander. That's what we do. Lisa will keep the engines running with spare parts and sheer stubbornness. Danny will fly us to the station safely. Amy will keep everyone healthy. Kevin will manage our resources and communications, and I'll make sure we all work together. It should not be this simple. Lisa smiled at that. It's not simple, Commander. It's just necessary. There's a difference. One of the children from the Wandering Star ran up to the table, holding out her drawing. It showed a small ship with 5 people inside, surrounded by stars. Above the ship, she had written something in her own language that the translator rendered as heroes. Jake took the drawing gently. Thank you. This is beautiful. The child ran back to her parents, clearly pleased. Veltrix watched the interaction and felt something shift in his understanding. You don't see yourselves as heroes, do you? He asked quietly. Heroes? Danny laughed. We're just cargo haulers who happened to be in the right place at the right time. You flew through the Helios belt at impossible speeds. You repaired your ship during flight. You evacuated 47 people from a dying vessel. You saved lives that my entire empire had written off as lost, Jake shrugged. We did what needed to be done. Anyone would have done the same. No, Veltrix said firmly. Anyone would not have. That is what I am beginning to understand. Humans would have done the same. Your species has something that most of us have lost in our pursuit of order and safety. What's that? Amy asked. The refusal to quit. The inability to accept failure. The stubborn determination to make the impossible merely difficult. Veltrix stood up. The Galactic Council will want to hear about this. I suspect they will have many questions. Tell them we were happy to help, Jake said. That's what neighbors do, right? Neighbors. Veltrix had never thought of humans as neighbors before. They were newcomers, primitives with old ships and strange methods. But maybe that was wrong. Maybe humans were exactly the kind of neighbors the galaxy needed. The report that Commander Veltrix filed became one of the most read documents in Galactic Council history. Not because it described a successful rescue mission, though it did. Not because it detailed advanced tactics or new technology, though it contained neither. The report was read over and over because it forced every species in the galaxy to rethink what they thought they knew about humanity. 6 months passed after the Helios Belt rescue. The Phoenix had limped to the nearest station, delivered all 47 survivors to safety, and then spent 3 weeks getting repaired. Lisa complained about the cost the entire time, but Jake noticed she smiled whenever someone thanked them for the rescue. During those 6 months, something changed in the galaxy. Human ships started being welcomed at stations that had previously turned them away. Cargo haulers like the Phoenix found themselves getting priority docking, and young pilots from a dozen different species started asking questions about how humans flew their ships. The Galactic Council met to discuss Earth status in the galactic community. Until now, humans had been tolerated but not fully accepted. They were too new, too different, too unpredictable. But the Helios Belt rescue had changed opinions. The humans did in hours what our best rescue fleet could not do in days, one council member said. We would be fools to not recognize their value. They took unacceptable risks, another argued. What if they had failed? What if they had made the situation worse? But they did not fail, Veltrix spoke up. He had been invited to address the council specifically about this matter, and I spent considerable time studying why they succeeded. It was not luck. It was not recklessness. It was a fundamentally different approach to problem solving. The council listened as Veltrix explained what he had learned. Humans did not wait for perfect solutions. They acted with the information they had and adapted as situations changed. They did not see rules as absolute barriers, but as guidelines to be followed when possible and ignored when necessary to save lives. They trusted their crew members to make decisions without waiting for approval from command structures. This makes them sound chaotic, a council member said. They are chaotic by our standards. Veltrix agreed. But there is pattern to their chaos. They call it thinking on your feet or improvising or adapting. Whatever the term, it makes them incredibly effective in crisis situations. The vote was not even close. Earth was invited to join the Galactic Council as a full member. The invitation was delivered by Veltrix himself, who traveled to Earth to present it in person. Jake Morrison and his crew were also invited to a formal ceremony. They had to rent formal clothes for the occasion, which made them all uncomfortable. Lisa kept adjusting her collar. Danny could not figure out how to tie his necktie correctly. Amy complained that her shoes hurt. Kevin just looked generally miserable in formal wear. I feel like I'm being strangled slowly, Danny muttered as they walked into the council chamber. Just smile and try not to trip, Jake whispered back. The ceremony was elaborate and formal, exactly the kind of thing that made humans uncomfortable. There were speeches in multiple languages, official documents that needed to be signed, and finally, the presentation of the Star of Valor, the highest civilian honor the Galactic Council could give. Veltrix himself placed the medals around each crew member's neck. When he got to Jake, he paused and spoke quietly so only Jake could hear. You showed my people that confidence and competence are not the same thing. We were confident we knew the best way to perform rescues. You were competent enough to actually perform one. Thank you for that lesson. Jake shook his hand, or whatever the equivalent was with Veltrix's species. Just doing our job, Commander. After the formal ceremony ended, things got more interesting. Young cadets from the various species space academies crowded around the Phoenix crew, asking questions faster than they could answer them. How did you calculate the gravity slingshot maneuvers? What mental preparation do you do before dangerous missions? How do you stay calm under pressure? Where can we learn to fly like you? Danny tried to answer the flying questions but kept getting frustrated. I can't really explain it. You just feel the ship, you know? You don't think about each move. You just do what feels right. That answer did not satisfy the cadets who wanted formulas and procedures. But it was the truth. Human flying often relied on instinct and experience rather than pure calculation. Lisa ended up giving an impromptu workshop on adaptive engineering. She demonstrated how to repair systems with limited tools and materials. The alien engineers watched in fascination as she fixed a broken power coupling using parts from 3 different sources and something she called a twist tie. But that violates safety protocol. 17, one engineer said. Does it work? Lisa asked. Well, yes, but that's not the point. That's exactly the point. Safe is good. Safe and dead is not good. Sometimes you have to choose safe enough and alive. Amy talked about emergency medicine with limited resources. She showed techniques for treating injuries when proper medical equipment was not available. Some of the methods made the alien doctors uncomfortable, but they could not argue with the results. Kevin demonstrated communication strategies for high-stress situations. He showed how to keep people calm, how to gather information quickly, and how to make decisions with incomplete data. And Jake talked about leadership. But his approach to leadership was very different from what the cadets expected. I don't give a lot of orders, he explained. My crew knows their jobs better than I do. Lisa knows engineering. Danny knows flying. Amy knows medicine. Kevin knows communications. My job is not to tell them how to do their work. My job is to make sure they have what they need to do their work and to trust them to do it. But what if they make mistakes? A cadet asked. Then we fix the mistakes and move on. Waiting for permission to act or being afraid to make mistakes gets people killed. I would rather have a crew that tries something and fails than a crew that does nothing and watches people die. That philosophy seemed to shake something loose in the minds of the young cadets. They had been taught to follow procedures, to wait for orders, to never deviate from approved methods. The humans were showing them a different way. Over the next few weeks, the phrase "we've got this" started appearing in conversations across the galaxy. It was usually said with a slight smile, sometimes with a sense of irony, but always with a new understanding of what it meant. It meant assessing a situation quickly and acting decisively. It meant trusting your skills and your team. It meant refusing to be stopped by the word impossible. It meant adapting when plans failed and improvising when resources were limited. Most of all, it meant taking responsibility for solving problems instead of waiting for someone else to solve them. The Phoenix eventually left for its next cargo run, which was actually a cargo run this time. No emergencies, no rescues, just delivering supplies from one station to another. But everywhere they stopped, people recognized them. Station workers would wave. Other pilots would buy them drinks. Children would ask for autographs. "This is weird," Danny said as they left yet another station where they had been treated like celebrities. "We just did our job." "We did our job in a way that nobody expected," Amy replied. "That makes us unusual." "I preferred being normal," Lisa grumbled, but she was smiling. Jake sat in the captain's chair, watching the stars stream by on the view screen. 6 months ago, they were just another cargo hauler trying to make a living. Now they were symbols of something larger. Representatives of what humans could do when they stopped worrying about what they should not do and focused on what needed to be done. Kevin was reading news feeds from various planets. "Hey, listen to this. There's a new class being taught at the Corvani Flight Academy. It's called Adaptive Navigation in Crisis Situations. And guess who they reference as primary examples?" "Let me guess," Danny said. "Some legendary pilot from ancient history?" "Nope. You. Specifically, your flight through the Helios belt is now a required case study." Danny's eyes went wide. "They're teaching other pilots to fly like me? That seems dangerous." "Probably," Jake agreed, "but also probably necessary. The galaxy is a big place with a lot of problems. Sometimes those problems need human-style solutions." Lisa looked up from her engine diagnostics. "So what you're saying is, we accidentally started a revolution in how aliens think about problem-solving?" "Apparently." "Great, can we go back to just hauling cargo now?" That was way less complicated, but they all knew things would never be quite that simple again. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do. More importantly, they had shown why humans did it, not for glory or recognition, but because when someone needed help, you helped them. When something seemed impossible, you tried anyway. When everyone said it could not be done, you said, "We've got this," and then proved it. The Phoenix continued on its route, just one small cargo ship among millions traveling the spaceways. But whenever anyone heard a distress call, whenever a situation seemed hopeless, whenever the careful calculations said something was impossible, more and more people started to think like humans. They looked at the problem, assessed their resources, trusted their skills, and said those 3 simple words, "We've got this." And then, just like Jake Morrison and his crew, they went out and made it happen.